All right, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Big Douglas Show. Felix Trammell is here. Adam and Eva is here. It's a Super Monday. Every Monday's super. That doesn't mean that the results were super. Fellas, how are you today?
I'm good, man. Happy to be here. Appreciate it.
Felix, it's been a while, man. I was looking back. It's odd. This year, I was looking back, and I was talking with my brother, and he was like, there's like five or six people that used to come on. I don't think you've had on in a while. Felix is one of those guys. I think you were like the third person we ever had on the show. You and I did a roster breakdown, I think, the first year everybody started doing podcasts. So you're on my apology tour. I'm sorry it's been so long. Great to have you today.
No problem.
It's interesting, fellas, is I looked back on the game, and it's one of those games where they lost, right? I mean, in the end, that's what we're talking about. They lost. They were up. Like, you could make a laundry list, though, I think, of all the. I think if you stacked up the good versus the bad on Sunday, you'd have a much longer list of good things that happened on Sunday than bad, and yet they lost again. So it's kind of very frustrating to kind of parse the two out. I thought Sam Howell showed you everything you wanted to see for a guy that tried to keep the job next year, for a potential new front office that's hoping that they don't have to draft quarterback next year. I think Sam showed you all the things. They were up in the fourth quarter. It's another game. They were up to the beginning of the fourth quarter and they lost. Phillips, what did you take away from the no moral victories loss?
I think part of what Coach Rivera has been saying all along is true. They play like a young team. That's where you can see those ebb and flows, those highs and lows, because they went toe to toe with the Philadelphia Eagles, which are probably the best team in the NFC right now. But then they also laid such an egg against the Giants. So, like, you see the ups and downs, so you can see that it's there. But winning in the NFL is probably one of the hardest things to do. And so when people, and I'm just interacting with fans, were saying, well, they barely beat Denver and they barely beat. This league is hard. It's hard to win in the NFL. You see the 49ers, they just lost 3 games in a row. Like, you would have never said that a month ago. Like, there was no way they were losing the games you thought they were going to lose. But with Washington, it just seems like when one part corrects itself, the other part falls apart. Okay. So, like, the defense gives up 14 points last week, gives up 38 the next week. And granted, some of that's on the offense because they got 2 short fields, but it never was a sense that the Eagles felt like, we might be in trouble here. Oh, we got to have to panic here. The Eagles never changed their speed, and they just walked it down, kind of like a villain in a horror movie. You know how the killer never runs, but he always
Myers never runs.
That's literally what the Eagles did. So I think the frustration of the fans and the frustration of everybody is it's there. Like you said, the fourth quarter they had the lead. Like if I told you on Saturday, hey, we got the Eagles by 7 in the fourth quarter, would you take that? And you would say yes.
Of course.
So I think, but it's never enough. It's like 75% of the job, and somehow they're going to have to figure out that 25%. But it's frustrating to see those fans in green, and they can be so annoying and so just brash. But they have a team that backs that up, and I think all of us are looking for a team that we want to support to back up like that. So it's just tough. I mean, you see the right things. Like, I love Sam Howell yesterday. I absolutely loved what he did. I love what Coach Bieniemy did with him yesterday. Like, I like those sort of things. But we didn't run B-Rob enough. Brian Robinson was averaging 6.3 yards a carry. Never touched the ball here.
He finished with 10 carries for 59 yards.
I mean, you double that. That's 120 yards. That's time the Eagles don't have the ball. You win that game. It's little things like that. So I think the pieces are there. I just say the messenger has to change. The messenger has to change because the message is not being received by all parts at all times.
You don't believe that will happen in season, do you? I don't think anything's coming in season.
My thought on that was it would have happened after the Bears game, where you say, okay, it was a run. We're going to have to move on. Unless it completely falls apart, I don't see that happening. But there's a 25% chance that does happen, though. That it does happen.
25% that major shakeups happen to the coaching staff.
To the coaching staff.
And Adam, what is the goal? What is the goal by changing the coaching staff out?
It's a good question. I don't know. To me, I just feel like the difference in a lot of these games is coaching. The level of incompetence of missing challenges. Not seeing this, saying it's just constant excuses. And I don't know. I might be in the minority. I know there's a lot of people that are EB supporters, and I'm kind of on the fence from what I've seen. He redeemed himself a little bit to me, but the idea of him being promoted to head coach, hear me out. This is why I like it, because I've heard people say, let them get to the bye or whatever. And I guess what? There's 3 or 4 games after the bye. If it's like that, then let them take over the last 3 or 4 games. Listen, we got to be realistic of where this team is going trajectory. We talk about the second half. They're a better team, but a better what? 7, 8 wins. That's what we're talking about here. So personally, I think it's not just the idea of promoting him to the head coach. We saw what he did in training camp. He runs a tighter ship. And personally, I would like to see what that looks like. I don't think you're going to get effective at losing the locker room, because I personally think they've lost the locker room. I think Rivera has lost the locker room. I think you look for a little spark. And I think by promoting EB to that, it's twofold. You see if you can get a spark. You see how he can react in game situations as a head coach. And you've got a little bit of a resume for the owners going into next year. But just ride this out the way it is. I understand the argument for it, because it's like, what do you expect? Why change it? That's why you change it, because you can put something on the tape for next year, just like players. For coaches, you want to put something on the tape for next year for them to have a better evaluation. Or honestly, it's starting from scratch. And it's really hope, what do they go out and get if it's not EB, another hot shot offensive coordinator or defensive mind, and, promote them to a head coach and hope it works out. At least if you do this with EB, you have some frame of reference in-house to go from there, because I don't see a world where JDR and Rivera are here, because it doesn't make sense. So I think after the last Eagles game, granted it was close, these little miscues and these things that Ron Rivera keeps, blaming on other people and not taking blame for, I think it's time for a change, because I think he's mentally checked out. That's just how I look at him.
Felix, you're in the locker room. What is your sense of how the players are reacting to what's going on? Because it's easy for us to look at what's going on and say, because I'm not saying you're not right, Adam. I think there's probably a good chance that, but Felix is actually in there. So I'm curious to see if you can get the vibe of what's in there.
Well, first, I 1,000% agree with Adam. I think that's the move that should be made, and give EB a full half year, because it's 9 games left. See what he can do in not just 3 weeks and 4 weeks. But some teams are tanking, some teams are resting for the playoffs. Some team, it's all over the place. Give him this time to show progression. So I am in that camp. Well, you see how the players in the locker room, they've taken the personality of their coach. These are all good guys. These are really good guys. They're all going to be professional. We saw John Allen's reaction last week, but they're really good guys. So there's no one's going to be in there like, man, blah 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 blah, just going off. Like I witnessed that firsthand with Jay Gruden. Players would come and tell me everything. So we're not getting that. So we don't see a locker room in mutiny. But like I said earlier, I think the message is not being received anymore. Right. And so you need a different messenger for it to come across, because let's take 2 plays in package. The 4th down to Devontae Smith, that's dropped. Eagles are rushing up. The whole sideline's calling incomplete. Everyone in the press box is like, hey, throw the flag. Nothing happens. The Eagles run a play. They score a touchdown. Conversely, in the 4th quarter, when the Commanders are trying to come back, there's the Dotson play. And magically, Darius Slay is laying on the ground. So now there's a chance for somebody to look at something. Hey, I don't know if that's a catch. New York magically reviews it, and it's overturned and incomplete. And then you challenge. I don't know. Once you go to New York and they said New York said it, there's no challenge at that point.
They shouldn't have allowed him to challenge at that point.
Those 2 plays, which they shouldn't have allowed him to challenge, first of all. Right. But those 2 plays shows a contrast. Because a coach like Sirianni wouldn't have allowed that play to get there. They would have stopped that Devontae Smith play, because that's big. You have the ball in midfield up 14-3 to possibly go 3 scores.
Oh, it was brutal.
Except now they have the ball on the 25 and they go in the score, and it's 14-10 or 17-10, because you do sneak a field goal off at the end. But even still, they've started to wake up. those are the little things, those hidden misses that Coach Rivera and them are not doing. And watching camp, watching Eric Bieniemy, he planned practice. He scripted practice.
Yes,
right. Practice. He did all those things. So let's let him do that on the field in a game. If he loses, so what? We were losing anyway. If he wins, great. We found the coach. So now you put pieces around it. So there's no losing to doing that. So I think I honestly think it should be done. I don't like calling for people's job, but Jack Del Rio should have never started this year. Correct. And after you saw the first 4 games, he should have never continued. So if we're going to keep saying, oh, we got to coach better, oh, we got to coach better, oh, we got to coach better, and you think the players are there, so it's not really the players anymore. At a certain point, it's not the players. Players are put in certain positions, but you saw that mishap on the Devontae Smith touchdown. That's coaching. That's coaching.
When's the last time? Let me ask you a question. When is the last time an interim head coach kept the head coaching job? For those of you excited about EB being the future of the program. You'll probably know it's Doug Marrone in Jacksonville in the early 2000s.
Yeah, it doesn't happen.
If you're an EB fan and you want EB to get a head coaching job, the last 3 games this season or the final 8, whatever's left, probably isn't in his best interest. Even though, to your point early, Adam, and I think it was a great one, coaches get to put out tape too. So I'm not saying he would turn down the opportunity. I just think it's an interesting note that for all of those wanting the interim job, that doesn't usually work out for the guy taking the job.
I think if he doesn't get, if he's not with Washington next year, he's going to go back to Kansas City. I think we saw, like, there'll be teams that'll be impressed with what he did with Howe, but to make him their offensive coordinator, I don't think so. So I think that there's a lot riding on this for him professionally to get an interim position. I think that that's the best case scenario for his trajectory, honestly.
We kind of skipped over you, Adam, when we got to talking about the coaching stuff a little bit, but I'm curious what your thoughts were on the game yesterday and what I thought there were some good things to take out of it.
Yeah, well, Felix, I'll start with those are the 2 things I keep talking about. Every game there seems to be some of those. So you accumulate all of those, and that's why I'm done. But I'm going to sway off to that and just focus on Sam Howell right now. I think a lot of people that were on the fence or against him are still like, yeah, I'm not sure. Man, I don't know how. This is an excellent Eagles defense that he shredded yesterday. You know, granted, it's a lot of dink and dunk stuff. I think if you got him in tempo, man, we could have seen him throw for 400 yards because I think he was excellent when he was rolled out of the pocket. Like that guy, that's one thing that separates him from 20 NFL quarterbacks is the way he can throw on the run, left or right. He still maintains that tight spiral, that tight rope. I love what I saw from him. So, you know, it's easy to look at that and say, yeah, but they didn't win because that's what I hear from all my readers when I put out, like, they're like, yeah, but he didn't win. Yeah, but when we went into this year, I think you and me said, you know, what would be a good best case scenario if they don't make the playoffs and, you know, they don't look good. Sam Howell doing good, the offense rolling. And to me, that's why I'm not really that surprised with all this because I do think this defense is good, but I think we all got caught on it, that they're just overhyped. But I think another defensive coordinator could do wonders with this, but it's not going to happen. And we knew when Payne and Allen were signed, it was never going to happen with all 4 on the defensive line. So that's why, you know, I try to put an article out trying to soften the blow because it's going to happen one way or another. Even if it does happen this year, it's going to be gone next year. So that's why I keep saying, you know, try to build for the future, move 1 or 2 of them. But, man, this defense, they just, like you said, they're just not clicking. It's not just Del Rio. It's just the chemistry. I think we wanted this defensive line to have so much chemistry. Allen and Payne played to Alabama together, you know, so much chemistry. Not necessarily playing God. You know, they actually play better when they're not next to each other. So, you know, I think you can walk away saying that this defense is a lot worse than we probably thought it was. But I think that it's not too late to make some in-season changes. Is that to try to win the Super Bowl or playoffs? Probably not. But what are we doing at this point if we just, you know, do the same things over and over? Because I think you see the remaining schedule, you know, I think 6-7 games because that's where I have them now. Because, you know, I had that 3-game stretch. I had them going 2 wins, 1 loss off of that. So to me, I just don't have confidence that the coaches can take them to the next level with what they have. But I will say this, and this is the most important thing besides the Sam Howell thing, that offensive line change did wonders. 1 sack allowed. Now, take out Wiley. Will they admit that mistake and put in Lucas? Maybe we have no sacks next week. So I like the progression with that. I don't like the offensive line coach, but I've been saying to you guys for how long I evaluated Paul. He should have been playing from the get-go. I like the fact that Charles, he's a veteran this snap, but I said from the get-go, Paul is more. I liked his athleticism. I liked his background, and I think that we're going to just see a better all-around offense with, him in the game and, obviously Larson.
He played with some nasty, Chris Paul did, and it was nice to see for sure. PFF has him graded low. I haven't gone back and looked at the tape yet to see how he played, but the eye test is just from watching the game, in real time, he was moving folk and getting nasty. I think Felix is interesting. We were talking about this just a minute ago with the running. Before the game started, I tweeted out, all right, Larson in, Paul in, fullback in. Right. Here we go, baby. Smash mouth football. And it was not that at all. Now, I don't have the screen numbers in front of me. Of course, if they throw 20 screens yesterday, then you're actually, you're by all accounts, your running game was a little heavier than what we think. But that's not the same as, so take the first fourth down play, right? Like, I didn't mind the play so much. He got greedy. I did rewatch that play. He's got, I think, Samuel open underneath for the first down, and he got greedy. And that'll happen because he was on a heater, so I can kind of see why. But you run that ball on 4th and 1 and just show that you plan on getting physical and nasty today. There's just something about that just gives a different spark to the offensive line, right, Adam? I mean, it would have been nice to just see him.
Well, you have Alex Armand, and so like I said on Twitter, you go jumbo. You bring in Lucas as a tight end. You got Armand. You got Robinson. You just run that in a tight formation. You're going to get that first down. I get what EB is trying to do, but I don't think he has any confidence in the line. I think that's part of this. I don't think that it's only a pass-heavy, mentality by him. I think he wants to run the ball. I think that he just does not have confidence in this offensive line right now. And I think, to me, that shows it, because I think you had an opportunity to get that first down with, a jumbo package, and, he went another way. So I really think that has a lot to do with it.
Felix, was Gates actually to the point where he couldn't play, or they removed him for the benefit of the line? I know Charles is out for a while. Like they ain't have. I always say this, right? The coaching staff is always being forced into making decisions that most of us, I think, are the right decisions. Cornerback is the same way. Were they forced into the center swap, or they did that on purpose?
They did it on purpose, and I think he solidified. Like Chris Paul, I like Chris Paul. I was on the fence on Chris Paul. I need to see him in real games against ones, and he held his own against the best part of the Philadelphia defense is their interior linemen.
Right.
And he Jordan Davis and Fletcher Cox, he stood toe to toe with. That's great. Larson is the better communicator. That's part of the reason why you didn't see as many sacks. Larson called things out. He's a smarter player. Even last year when they went on their run, he was the starting center. So Nick Gates came in and is not as efficient. And I think Nick Gates was a Tyler Larson insurance policy, because they knew Tyler Larson was not going to be ready when the season started. So they thought they'd bring a veteran in, kind of solidify the line. Larson is the better center. I mean, there's no other way around it. So I think they made that move, which helps Paul in his first start, because now you have him on one side, Lynn on the other. Now you have surrounded him with two veterans who have been there, who understand, and that's why the line had a better game. And to Adam's point, they want to run, but they don't have the power to run yet. They did a lot of duo blocks, and it worked for a while. There was one where Cosme and Wiley actually duoed Fletcher Cox just down the line, and B-Rob goes off right tackle for maybe 20 yards, and just little things like that. So they have to be schemed to run. They're not a true power run team yet. They have to be schemed up to it. But Coach BMB wants to run. I mean, he's a former running back. Like, he wants to pound the ball. He understands that. Like, that's how you win games in December and January are those things. But that short passing game that we saw was that compliment. We saw Sam Howell, 1, 2, 3, ball gone. 1, 2, 3, ball gone. Blockers where they were supposed to be. And, there was a couple bad calls, like that Logan chop block call.
Terrible.
They're running the ball in that play. And that's just a backside cut, which happens on every single outside zone. But it was unfortunately adjudicated. So I think the Larson move was the move they were going to make, and they did it silently. as a respect to Gates, but you saw it work wonders because Larson can communicate and he can help Paul to his left, but he also can help Howell behind him because now he can see what he needs to see and he can slide protections when he needs to make sure that Howell stays upright like he did most of the game yesterday.
Well, and it's a great point. And people were asking me on Sunday, upsettedly, why not just go straight to Stromberg? Why not go straight to Stromberg if that's the 3rd round draft pick? And while I understand that, and we can get to the draft class, and that's a whole different story. but the reason that Stromberg's not in there is because, and when we did the film review of the game last Tuesday on the Giants game, you could tell they were not getting the protections right. I mean, it was just easy to see. And so again, if you want somebody out there to help a young quarterback get reads right, maybe a rookie center isn't the best way to go. And it's exactly to your point why Larson is in the game. One, he has an oddly weird record of having wins with the team, but also it was totally to get the protections right and help the young quarterback and obviously the young guard next to him. The right guard also great game, and he's starting around in his shape. One of you mentioned the interior line. If Stromberg is it, and we don't know, but I mean, you've really got something to work off of, and then you just worry about getting the tackles. And that's why figuring out how, of course, is so important in this thing, because you'd love to be able to draft one of these stud left tackles next year and not worry about having to go trade up. Because I think, Adam, to your point, they're going to win 7 games. I mean, that's what they do, right?
That's right.
I'd be stunned.
The run's coming because there's always a game they're not supposed to win. Let's just say, for sake of argument, it's the Dolphins. Like, no one's going to pick them to beat the Dolphins. Right. And then magically it's going to be 40 degrees and rain. And they win a mutter game. And then next thing you know, they're right at that outside wild card thing. That's what they do.
They play the 49ers tough every time they play. And by the time they play the Cowboys will be rested.
They'll split. They'll split with the Cowboys, Yeah. And next thing you know, they're sitting right there at 8-9 or 9-8. And you're like, well, we should have did this, but it would be nice to draft a left tackle. I mean, what was the last left tackle they drafted? Trent Williams. Hall of Famer.
Mm-hmm.
The last left tackle you drafted before that, Chris
Samuels.
Like I'm naming Hall of Famers, or Chris Samuels had the talent to be a Hall of Famer. The team didn't really help him. He ended up with a neck injury, but that was a solid left tackle for 8-9 years. That was something you never thought about. You never thought about that.
Great. So you've seen Chris recently. He looks fantastic.
He looks great. I mean, he's slimmed down. But yes, but you're seeing what happens when you do that.
Yeah.
So do that. And hopefully, okay, everyone wants Caleb Williams. I get it. Everyone was that. I'd rather build the line. The Cowboys, and I hate to give Dallas any credit, but they built the line first. And so they competed and then got the quarterback.
Yep.
They built the line.
Of course, that's what they were trying to do here, Felix, if you listen to Ron Rivera from the day he got here. Problem is they just never invested in the line.
He doesn't understand investment in the offensive line. This draft is really deep at tackle. So, you talk about, I've heard people say, even if you get a second-round offer for Swear or anything, it's not enough. Bullshit, it's not enough. Because having 2 second-round picks and a first-round pick, you can sway that around and you can get a starting left and right tackle. If they can come into next year with they're losing some guys, re-sign maybe Fuller, not many. They're going to let a lot of the other guys walk, but they're going to have $91 million to work with in free agency to replace whatever DN that they trade. If they can solidify those bookends with Sam Howell and get that going, man, this is how teams have a breakout year the next year. That's how I really see it. Trenches, they can get it done.
Because in all sincerity, if Cosme's fine, Cosme's your best lineman.
Yep.
If Larson's healthy, you have Stromberg behind him to learn. And if Paul happens to be that guard, you've got the interior of the line.
Yep.
And then you just build the tackles because you have the weapons around it. And to be fair, we just don't have the line that you can just hand off to B-Rob in the fourth quarter and say, win this game.
That's right.
Win this game.
Yep.
Which would be nice to have, just to say, here, it's fourth quarter, we're up 7, win this game. No. They don't have a line yet.
That would be nice.
Not yet.
I was trying George, whose birthday is tomorrow, so he's out of town celebrating. Happy birthday, early birthday, George.
Happy birthday.
Which is why he's not here today. But he had posted earlier, and I'm not sure where he found it from, but basically it was like they had been working on giving Tez an extension this summer. Then new ownership comes in and all that goes on hold, which I found interesting because at training camp, and I'm almost positive it was training camp, he gets up on a podium, right, and says, "Hey, Duran showed us how to get the bag." So I was surprised that he didn't realize that he wasn't going to, they weren't going to, he was going to have to play this year first,
right,
and then get it. So I'm curious how that works, but you know, as the kids say, he must be out of here because he wiped his Instagram. So I'm assuming that he's not coming back. Again, I think you're right, Adam. If you get a second and a future, I don't care, fourth for him. Yeah, because at this point, they're not paying these guys. I don't think they're going to pay any of them. They've got the 2D tackles already paid.
Yeah.
Again, I think that's where the biggest value is.
Well, you know what I said?
what
I said is analytics. The little I'm learning about analytics. One thing that I've reached out to people, you'll be hard pressed to find a true analytics program that embodies spending 100 plus million on 4 guys on the defensive line. It believes in divvying it out. And again, I think that's going to be the number one thing we see next year is that the analytics is going to be top, and that's going to make a decision who the GM, and then in turn should be who the coach is after the GM.
Right. So
go ahead.
I've said that, and people didn't like what I said. Sweat's probably the one to go because there's more value in Chase being here, being a local kid. He has more draw, more start ability, and so that's a Harris decision. And if you're putting up apples and oranges, Chase has a little bit more of that flash impact. He has more of that star off the field sort of thing. So that would be the person who they would probably go with in that situation.
Well, he's your number 2 overall pick you just drafted,
right? And you want to keep that. And secondly, if you notice, go to Adam's point, their teams are having more and more D linemen. Like Philadelphia dresses 11 D linemen on game day. Like Commanders are up to 10. So it's not the old school. You have your dominant 4. You might have one come in off the bench, and that's it. No, they're rotating 8, 9, 10 guys in a defensive front, and they're just telling them, go get them, go get them, go get them. Your dog's tired. Next one's go in, go get them, go get them. You're not seeing that much anymore. So it's hard to invest $100 in there when
I'm sure they've got 5 first rounders on that Philadelphia D line.
Yeah,
they got 5 first rounders too.
Yeah, so it's a rotational thing. So you got to start seeing. You can't put $100 million in the first 4 and expect to have another 5 or 6 behind them that can play. So,
well, and I think Shen. I mean, we hadn't gotten there. We can get there now. I mean, they bring in Eugene Shen. They could have brought him in a month from now. I find it, I think it's obvious they brought him in at a specific time right before the trade deadline, which is good because I don't think that you or I want this group making any decisions that affect the outcome of the program going forward. This is one of those deals I think where when we look back on it, we'll say, Ron, thank you. Were you the best coach? No, but I don't know anybody that could have come in here and got us through what Ron got us through.
Yes.
By the way, while beating cancer,
right,
and COVID protocols, I think we'll look back and be really impressed with what he did here. It's just not enough to get us over the hump.
Agreed. And I think you have to realize where that team was in 2019 going into 2020. That was a bad team. Bad all over, talent-wise, position-wise, front office, coaching, everything was bad. Front office, owner, everything was bad. So to get through what he got through, and that's fine. He got from really bad to okay. But that doesn't mean he's the guy to take us to the next level. And in all homage to him, and nice guy, very, very good guy. But it's a certain coach to take you to the next level. There's 2 types of coaches. There's the fiery coach. There's the Dan Campbells of the world and the Siriannis of the world. Then there's the over-analytical guys that are just like real smart, the McVays and the McDonald's and all those type coaches. I think that's where they have to go. Like you got to have a young firebrand now. I think that's just what the move that has to be made. And it's no knock to Ron, because Ron did an excellent job, because to get this team through COVID, through a name change, through an ownership change, through a death of a former football player, to another death of a girlfriend of a football player. It's just a litany of things that happened that he righted the ship through. That has to be well congratulated that he did it. But now is the time that all that other stuff has been fixed. Now we got to fix what's on the field. And you're in the still, no matter what people say, that's still the toughest division in sports. You still have the Cowboys, who will always be the Cowboys, always have money, always right. And you have the Eagles, who are probably the most well-run team in the league right now.
Yeah,
and the Giants, even though the Giants just traded Leonard Williams a few minutes ago or a couple hours ago, they're still, they've ever figured out their quarterback position and a couple of linemen, they're going to be right there too. So that's the division you're in. It's going to have to be better on the field, because teams don't fear Washington. They be like, okay, Washington play us hard, but we don't fear them.
I think that's right.
And so it has to get back to a point where, oh my God, we're playing Washington this week.
That's right. I had a conversation with Mark Bullock one time, and I was asking him about, defensive-minded head coaches versus offensive-minded head coaches. Does it make a difference? If you talk to players, I talked to Sean King, Florida quarterback. He says, listen, the biggest difference is where they spend their money, right? When he was in Tampa Bay and it was Dungy, they spent all their money on defense. When Gruden came in, they started spending all their money on offense. That's a philosophy. The other thing, though, that Mark told me that I thought really was very interesting, and I hadn't thought about it that way until he did, was the problem with a defensive-minded head coach is if you're scoring points and moving the ball and winning football games, then teams, because that's the trend of the league, will be coming for your offensive coordinator every couple years. And it's harder to start off that way on the offense. There will be some very good defensive coordinators being looked at for jobs this year. Do you have a preference, offense or defensive minded, at the head man spot?
I don't actually have a preference, but I kind of want a young, energetic guy, whoever that may be.
Right.
If it's a young firebrand,
no Jim McMahon if they let him go from Michigan. I mean Harbaugh. I said McMahon. Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah, no Harbaughs. I couldn't do a Harbaugh. I could live with a Dan Campbell because he's a defensive guy, but Dan Campbell is just energy. He's energy. Even a Rob Salah or what's the guy in Texans? The Ryans.
Oh yeah. From Alabama, D'Amico Alabama.
So like you're seeing those type guys. So I don't have a preference. I would prefer an offensive coach just because I think there's a lot of offensive pieces here, and that can be utilized in such different ways. It can be beautiful. But I do think for me, I don't have a preference either way. It's just a younger, hungrier, more aggressive coach. And I don't think, that riverboat thing, I don't know where it went off to, but I need aggressive. I need, like a Dable. Dable's aggressive. And he told his defense, we're just going to blitz out the building. And you know how excited that defense probably got? They were like, okay, we'll run through the wall to do what we need to do. And you saw the result. So I think somebody like that, it doesn't matter to me, like if it's an offensive, defensive guy, but somebody who's going to get the most out of the talent that they have and not try to make the talent go into their system, make the system for the talent.
I wanted to talk to you about this because I haven't talked to you in a while, but where do you stand on how the defense, first, second round draft picks didn't play but 10 snaps combined the last game. I mean, what are we doing here? Was this a missight on the drafting? Are they not putting them in the right positions? Do we not have the coaching staff to get them in the right positions? I know you were angry when they let Chris Harris go. I think there's a lot of people who think with him in the building there'd be different things. So I'm just curious where it lies. The talent's there. for both guys. I talked to Jim Nagy after they drafted Quan Martin, and he said Quan was one of the biggest rises at the Super Bowl. People loved the athleticism and his ability to play 2 or 3 different spots like they like. And I remember after they drafted Forbes, I called my brother and I said, they're going to have to draft a nickel in the second round because they don't have one. When they took Forbes in the first round, I mean, they could say whatever they want to about Benjamin St-Juste, and I know they love trying to shove him into the nickel, but he's a boundary corner. He was a boundary corner when they drafted him. He needs the sideline for help. Kendall Fuller was a great nickel 3 years ago. He hasn't been a good nickel in 3 years ago. He's been a very good boundary cornerback, and they drafted a guy so slight in Forbes that he can't play inside.
Right.
So as soon as they did that, I said, well, they're going to have to, and that was Quan Martin, and I liked the pick. I actually would have preferred Brian Branch, the guy from Alabama that went 1 pick ahead. That's splitting hairs. I'd have taken either one of them. I think the guy we got in Martin is more athletic. Why can't we get him on the field, Felix?
It's a combination of those things. I don't think it's the lack of talent. I think that's
no.
One,
you don't need the SEC in turnovers that just somehow lack talent.
You don't play. Everyone's talking about he's too small. He's too small. He's played against all these receivers in college.
Never missed a game.
Who do you think? He was playing LSU when LSU had Justin Jefferson, all those guys. Well, he played Alabama with their litany. He played Georgia. He played all these. He's played all those teams and had interceptions. So it's and Darryl Green spoke on that. His technique is flawed right now. He doesn't trust it. When a quarterback doesn't trust their technique, they're done because now they're thinking and they're not being athletic. So that's one. And two, they're not put in places to succeed. First time he comes out there, it's a 3rd and long, and he's one-on-one. I can tell by the formation. The safety moves the other way. I think Eagles had 2 receivers on the left and A.J. Brown on the right, and they were in cover 2. And the safeties rotated over. So the closest safety is standing in the middle of the field. Not even on the hash mark, the middle of the field. And I can see Jalen Hurts look at A.J. Brown as they already knew. You would have seen a kid in the candy shop. They were so excited. So you're not putting them in a place to succeed. No corner on this earth is going to sucdeed in some of the situations that Ford's been put in. Not Patrick Peterson, not Darrelle Revis, not even Deion. Deion was a press guy. They let Deion press. Emmanuel Forbes is the off-man guy. They want him to press. Like William Jackson was a press guy, and they wanted him to play off-man. So, if they're good at something, like I said this, I think I tweeted this out in the Atlanta game. Look what happens when they're in off-man. Fuller interception. This interception. Because they have their eyes on the quarterback. That's how they played in college. But you want them to move up and press and then not have a safety over the top of them when you press them.
And why, Felix? Because they've known this for years that the defense plays better when they're in off man. And for some reason, the first 5 games of every season, Del Rio gets enamored with playing press man on the outside. And I don't understand it because they know it doesn't work.
It doesn't work. And then it's not just Forbes. The Giants picked on St-Juste. They knew when they wanted to go to Hyatt on St-Juste what St-Juste would do. And they got him twice. The kid had 90-some yards receiving on 2 catches, both from Benjamin St-Juste. So it's a coaching technique problem coming from the top because you didn't have these breakdowns as much last year with Chris Harris in the building. But if you're scheming me to play press man and I'm 175 and the receiver is 220, I'm already in my mind thinking I'm at a disadvantage. Right. Because he can. So you're thinking instead of wanting to trust your eyes and look at the quarterback and read, now you're looking at this guy. And next thing you know, he hits me with this move. I fall off because I'm so wide open.
Oh, and by the way, number 11 in green is a space alien.
Yeah, the first touchdown he made yesterday.
He's on pace for 2,000 yards. He's doing it to everybody.
Yeah, I'm you take offense. They're like, well, he's burning them. He's been burning everybody. Okay, yeah. He just burned the Dolphins last week. He beat the Jets the week before that. That's what he's doing right now. He's playing some of the top ball you're going to see. That's life. But you make them beat you with somebody else. Put 2 people over there. how they used to do Randy Moss. They would just put two people over there. Okay, good luck. Somebody else has to beat me. They did it with Megatron. Let's try to do something different. The fact that you saw it working or saw it not work in Philly and then allow the same thing to happen again in Washington is borderline criminal, because that shows you're not adjusting.
I don't have the numbers up in front of me, but I would venture to say that they blitzed something like 20% of the time last year. Maybe not that high. This year, I bet you it's stuff like 35, 40%. They never get home. And I don't understand why. Why do they continue to force the blitz? Everybody wants the blitz. They want more pressure. They want more pressure. They want more pressure. But you're not getting home with that anyway. I don't understand why we can't get back to rushing for, dropping coverage, and making teams beat you up the middle of the field.
It makes sense. I mean, this is where our linebacker position suffers because we don't have the athletes at linebacker. The teams that blitz well have athletes at linebacker, not just the D-line. Everyone's focused on the D-line. But why do the 49ers blitz so good? Because who's behind those linemen? Who's behind those linemen? Like when Seattle was good, who was behind those linemen? Yeah. Like they had the linebackers they were the ones who did.
I know, but I try not to talk about that too much, Felix, because we ain't getting no new linebackers then, and the two fellas we have that are light on the melanin aren't any good.
So yeah, I mean, there's no reason Mayo should have started, even though he was wearing the green dot. Heck, Cameron Curl can wear the green dot, and he was fine at it. Put Kaleki out there. You gotta move. If we put our best athletes out there,
done something with somebody, because I don't understand how Hudson can't get. I mean, did you see that it was like I think he got 5 snaps. Some other guy thought was going to get a ton of snaps on Sunday. He got
5, and maybe he gets a few more next week in New England. But my problem is you need to put your best athletes on the field now, and Mayo's not it. And I don't know what I mean. I don't care how much defense you know, you still got to go out there and play it. And you're at a disadvantage when all they have to do is get Jamin Davis on the tight end because he has to cover him. Now it's Mayo 1-on-1.
Brutal.
It's insane. So like our offense was taking advantage of Blankenship for the longest time. Whoever was on Blankenship was getting abused. That was great. But teams are going to do that to us too. So they picked on Mayo. They're going to pick on Forbes, and especially if you keep leaving them isolated like you are. But you have to rebuild. You have to do the technique right. But we don't put our players and us. The team doesn't put the players in the best place to succeed. And I've said it with the line, because the line is always in the same 4 spots. They're easy to the block. You never move them around. There's never a time when, if you watch Boa, Aiden Hutchinson, they line up all over the line.
Yep.
Or Bosa. You watch their left end, right end, over the tackle, over the guard, A gap, B gap, standing up. And we're in the same 4 positions every time.
And they look bored.
Yeah. I mean, that's part of the reason why you see it. We get the blitz now. Teams just do a heavy set drop, and they stand them up. Completion.
Let's wrap with this, Felix. What are we supposed to make? What are we about halfway through now? A little less. Ron's going to tell you the season's not over, and technically it's not over. I think we both agree they will go on some sort of run and end up around 6 or 7 wins. How do we look at the rest of the season, assuming no major changes happen to the staff?
I mean, we're going to see about the same. Good weeks, bad weeks.
What should the fans be doing? Like, well, we're not here to tell fans how to fan. That's not my job. But also, like, setting expectations and being realistic isn't necessarily a fan thing.
Right.
But what are you hoping to see? What is realistic for the rest of the year? What do we spend the rest of this season looking for?
One, you hope that Howell continues to progress. If Howell starts 17 games, then it was a success.
Agreed.
If Howell plays all 17 games, it was a success. And if he grows and has more good games than bad, then we know that Howell's trending in the right direction. I think that's where we're going to have to look at, because we have to see development of that. Because if Howell becomes a solid quarterback, a solid NFL starter, that solves one problem and you can fix another. But if you have that question mark, then there's that question mark, then the line question mark, then the defensive coordinator question mark, the linebacker question mark, then the question marks start adding up. So I think as a fan, it's not fun because you're thinking about, oh God, here comes this team, all these other fans out there. But you have to understand that it's going to be development now. It's development season. That's pretty much what it is. But Doug, I got to run. I got.
You got it, buddy. Good luck on the volleyball game tonight.
Yeah, I appreciate it. See you later, buddy.
Appreciate you.